Despite decades of being known as an amateur sport, college football has always been a steamboat riding on a river of money.
And I know it's quite complicated. I think a lot of people see settlement. They see $2.7 billion.
In this video, we will try to make some sense of what just happened in college football.
They see revenue sharing. To the best of your ability, can you kind of unpack what just happened?
I mean, basically, the NCAA, they're like owing forever in lawsuits, right? And, as soon as you see that happens, you've got blood in the water and the sharks start circling. And a lot of athletes' rights groups and attorneys, civil litigation attorneys, see an opportunity and they just start suing the NCAA, and they don't want to lose any more lawsuits, so they settled this. And if they had lost this lawsuit, it's an antitrust lawsuit. There's a tripling factor in damages that they could have faced.
And how it will change our favorite sport now and years beyond.
But this is the most significant day in the history of the NCAA because the sham that the NCAA has always been is over.
In a nutshell, the players seem to have won big, but not all players won equally. It seems that the rich simply will get richer. It's complicated and confusing when you try to understand how this money flows in college football. The good thing is that from this point moving forward, there should be a lot more transparency regarding money in college football.
They have always fought on every mountain to defend the right that this is really amateur athletics, when we've all known that has not been the case for a long time.
By the time the lawyers and accountants and school administrators and TV executives are finished, college football could literally be unrecognizable compared to what we have today. Consider the fact that the NIL is bound to change. There will be roster limits, possibly a salary cap, and of course the tax questions. Will college football remain an amateur sport? All this has to be sorted out.
And finally, they had to agree to it in court to avoid what? To avoid literally going out of business, because had this case gone to trial, they would have been wiped out. I mean,
one thing for sure, the large schools suddenly are on the hook for up to $20 million. The school, for the players, you would think they would certainly have some structure in place to allow more control over how long a player stays. Kirby Smart says 2 years should be the minimum.
if you agree to settle something for $2.8 billion, can you imagine how much exposure you had? So the NCAA plus the conferences that were dragged into it alongside simply wave the white flag. They have the money. This isn't really to further student athletes, quote unquote, so to speak. This is to prevail and preserve their own ability to continue to be in existence. That is the NCAA.
The transfer portal eventually would have to be completely overhauled. Either way, it does seem that if you're one of the 20 to 30 schools that actually make money, it might be just business as usual for them.
When you start hearing about rev share, the things to fall in the line, the trickle-down effect after that, come employee. And that's what's going to be the next thing. When will all these athletes become employees of the university? And then talk about players actually having a voice of representation.
I think one of the key components is that now the schools can actually pay the players. That's going to change a lot. You won't have to have these collectives going out and all this crazy stuff, the lawsuit, the way to get their NIL money. The Rashada incident with Florida, those things they're going to be constantly in the news for a while because this is nowhere near being cleared up. But one big point schools can actually pay the players. Now, what does that actually, in real terms, what does that mean?
It's still
union.
So mind-boggling. Players union. You're exactly right, Paul. And that's where all this is heading towards.
Well, it means they can actually pay the players. That's a big thing. I mean, that's a 50-year, one of the long-standing tenets of the NCAA was to keep that from happening, and now they can do it.
The fact that the players still don't have one unique voice collectively in which they can come together because the NCAA has been able to fracture all their voices for so long.
Essentially, what we have just seen is the NCAA has basically waved a white flag as to controlling the sport. So as the NCAA continues to disintegrate, or perhaps in some manner reconstitute some power, don't think they won't be trying. But as the lawsuits and all the legal maneuvering goes on, we still have to play football. None of this is going to affect this season, but it actually still might, because if everything is going to be thrown up into the mix next year, it might actually affect how things work out in recruiting and the transfer portal for even this season. Bottom line, SEC, Big Ten schools, probably it's the best day. It's Christmas. Now they can pay the players. They just pay them. It's going to come down to which schools have the money to do that. And where is this money going to come from? Are they going to milk the fans for more? Are they just about topped out ticket prices? Georgia just raised their tickets prices, and they're the highest in the SEC, but they're going to raise them again. What about donations? That's something you want to watch. Are those donations going to keep coming in? What about spending money on facilities? Will that eventually erode as more money goes to the players? Because that's the real reason they spend the money, is to stay on top of the recruiting game. So if recruiting comes down to dollars, not much else. College football looks like the rich will get richer. Good news for schools like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Southern Cal, the ones that we are always seeing in the top 25. It's going to come down to that's going to be the only winners in the scenario. And do we really want a college football landscape where there's really only 30 teams? Yeah. There's always just 30 teams that matter this year. But Georgia State's Sun Belt teams, what's going to happen to them? You will notice that almost all the legislation, almost all this stuff referred to the Power Four. And so we're reducing the number of teams that are really important. And it looks like to me that we're not taking baby steps, but giant steps to making college football an official farm system for the NFL, maybe even a competitor. And also, when will the colleges start trying to tap into that NFL money source? I mean, they're spending money, millions of dollars to develop these players, and NFL just grabs them whenever they're ready. A free farm system. So maybe colleges might find a way to, like they do in soccer, and get some money from the pros when these guys are drafted. Say they're drafted before their 4-year term, there might be some fees involved. There might be some transfer fees, and those could be in the millions. This is all up in the air. It's all going to change. And the sad thing is, it's not really going to help the game.